What's going on, guys? Today I'm here to talk about something that I've kind of noticed lately, and I'm sure a lot of other people have noticed too. Just wanted to sit down and actually kind of talk about it, and that is how 6ix9ine managed to basically build the blueprint for what a lot of modern rappers try to do. And before you scratch your head at what I'm saying, I mean that in the way of organizing like a mass social media campaign, and not even really a campaign, because that involves you being like, oh, like trying to put positive messaging, I guess, out about yourself. Not really that. I guess more so a mass social media presence, whether that be through your own social media channels and pages, or through the different news pages that exist. Like, I mean, basically that's what 6ix9ine did with World Star in 2018. Just, did enough stuff. I'm sure they was somewhat paying them, slash they were also incentivized, because at that time 6ix9ine content was going crazy. Just it brought in a lot of views. And then that was also just kind of the introduction of sort of this, I guess, troll era. Like, you had guys like him, Supreme Patty, like people of that type of content, that were just really going off. That was like when social media really started to cement itself as just a part of our daily lives. And you've seen so many artists follow this route since, especially since TikTok blew up. That is now, like, I mean, you could say maybe that is more so the reason, rather than 6ix9ine just pioneering such a innovative, whatever. But I truly think that he kind of helped create this modern landscape for how you become relevant slash known to the masses, which is just basically force yourself down everybody's throat, pay these pages, be seen everywhere. And you see that in ways from the trolling people like a 6ix9ine, or you also see it in a way of just like, a great example is Lil Durk. Hello Yassine. If you haven't seen his channel, check him out. He makes awesome content. But he's talked about how, like, when he was really, really in his peak commercially, you would just see random pages posting like, "Oh, yo, Lil Durk's playing basketball here," and it's like, does anybody really care that Lil Durk's playing basketball? No, that's not why they covered it. It's a way for him to be seen, for him to be in front of your face, but for it to be in a way that is seemingly organic. That this page is like, oh, people are interested in Lil Durk, that's why we're posting it. It's not that he's paying us to post him, which is usually what it ends up being, because basically they're taking the advertising approach. Like, it's the usual question of, like, when people find out how much money Coke or Pepsi spends on advertising, you're like, bro, everyone knows what Coke and Pepsi are. Why are you spending that much money on advertising? Because the importance of just staying seen, staying in front of people's faces, cannot be understated, especially in the age of the internet with everything, because now information is moving 1,000 miles a second. You can't not be in people's faces for too long, or else they'll just forget about you, and the next time you try to drop a project, it's going to go triple cardboard. And that's just the unfortunate way it is now, because I know many artists don't like this type of system. They feel, I'm an artist, I make music, why is being a social media influencer like so tied to that now? Or at least to be successful and actually garner yourself a fan base. And it's just sort of, you got to play with the system that is in place. I guess the argument to that would be is that before the internet, there was really no good way of being discovered organically. The only way you'd be able to do that is grinding until, hopefully, I guess, a label saw you, and then they would kind of be able to put you on. At least with the internet, it's more of a direct resource that you have. Like I said, I understand that's not what you want to be doing necessarily as a musician. But there are also people on the other end of that spectrum that use it as the way that they make content, and they kind of have more of a content fan base that likes music rather than just strictly music. So, like, a good example of this would be Harry Mack, if you're familiar with him. I'm sure he wanted to be just a normal, regular musician starting out, wasn't maybe having the most success with that. I'm making that part up. Maybe he was doing great and just branched out. But I imagine that was maybe what happened. And then decided to start going hard through the social media stuff to try and get himself out there. by experimenting with different types of videos and all the different content that he made, he found certain styles of videos worked better than others, and then kind of became pretty big off that, established a fan base. And now I know he went really, really viral for his like Omegle bars and Gorilla bars, where it's like the randomness of it, like that was inherently fascinating. He would get words from people and construct a freestyle out of those words. So inherently, that's obviously going to be a lot harder, because not only do you have to make a song basically on the spot, be able to just spit it right there, but now you also are being controlled in what language you can use, to make it a little bit more challenging. And now I'm pretty sure he's retired those. I haven't really tapped in with him in a while, so I don't know exactly what he's up to. Last time I checked, though, I want to say that he was somewhat retiring those series and moving on to different ventures. And I get that, because now he's established that fan base of his. A lot of them were there for those videos, yes, but I'm sure that he also established just like a Harry Mack fan base instead of just the Omegle Bars fan base as well. So he can carry at least a portion of his audience to new content and new ventures that he wants to make with music. And I think that the social media guerrilla campaign, where you're just like Sexy Red is another example of this. I mean, how many posts were you seeing about Sexy Red? Because they're trying to shove her down your throat to make it so that you go and listen to her music, maybe. Or at least you're buying into this image that most artists are trying to sell, that they're famous, they're huge. And I'm not saying that as a diss towards Sexy Red. That's the game, is somewhat that is the game, is pretending like you're like that, even at times when you are not like that. I do think that there is some value to be had of just being honest with your fans and not putting on a charade, because then when you get exposed for not having it like that, when your Instagram says otherwise, now you just look goofy. Whereas if you're just honest, like a good example of this is 2K Baby, I think I'm saying that right, remembering that correctly, who had the Old Streets song. And then a few months ago at this point, maybe, some people were recording him while he was door dashing, because, I mean, he was really, really popping off like 2020, 2021. Obviously, it's been a little while since then. He hasn't had as much music success commercially since then. And you got to pay the bills somehow. But then some freaking idiot sees him doing the job, door dashing, and decides to like make fun of him. Be like, "Oh, you were this rat." And I mean, I don't even know enough about 2K Baby to know if he was really trying to ever establish himself as like, "Oh, you're a bum if you're working." Like, he never put out a message, as far as I know, that was contradictory to what he was doing. The music wasn't hitting, and he still has things that he needs to pay for, so he was supplementing his income. This random goofball just happened to see him and decided to try and make fun of him. Most people agreed, though. That guy looked like the idiot. But it just goes to show you that the buying into the image is huge for a lot of people. Like, the fact that they might think that you're lame, corny, or not popping, that will potentially impact whether or not they decide to go and check out your music and to go see if you dropped. Because if nobody else is checking you out, why should they? I don't think that's necessarily a good thought process. That just happens to be what I think most people's minds go to when they see an artist like that. They're like, this guy's kind of lame or goofy, and or he's just not really popping like that the way he was. I'm trying to think of some more examples, but I'm sure you guys are thinking of some names that kind of fit that mold. But back to the original point of this video, I know that was quite the tangent. Was this not somewhat established by 6ix9ine? Just be in their face all the time, and then you will basically create a relevance for yourself. Because you also see people do it that aren't really artists, or I guess maybe just not trying to promote music. Like the other one I see that kind of comes to me right now is like Lil Duval, which I think he made music. I don't follow Lil Duval because I just don't care about Lil Duval. Pretty sure he was a rapper. Maybe I'm wrong. I could not name a song by him. But that's why World Stars is asking what you think about what Lil Duval's saying every other day about some random tweet that he posted, because he's trying to insert himself into the conversation, because otherwise no one would include him. And although a lot of people agree about the fall off of World Star, or at least the annoyance of similar media companies like that, they still get the views, they still get the clicks, and that is still where a lot of people's eyes are because the algorithm. So you can't really control even your own algorithm now these days, you know. So let me know what you guys think. Am I too far off base with this to say 6ix9ine somewhat laid out this blueprint for a lot of people to follow? Obviously, he didn't invent the entire concept, but it just feels like after he had such a run using it, you started to see a lot more people follow after him. Maybe it was because very soon after the TikTok thing came up, as far as it just exploding in popularity. Maybe that was it. It very well could be. I mean, TikTok's huge. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you later.